and having an ensnared unit is just basically giving your opponent all this free time to whack up on your units and really take them out. So the other option I want to take a look at here, which we're also going to see as soon as we unpause, is this the first skill choice for the Lich. Now, most Undead players in the Orc match, and actually any match, are going to go for, what, Frost Nova first, right, on their Lich. And this is a very common thing for a lot of players to do. However, in this matchup, I really think it's essential when going up against an Orc player who's using Raiders and Ensnares to go Frost Armor first. Just level 1 Frost Armor on your Lich. And this is going to severely halt and kind of delay your focus fire and your nuking power until your Lich gets to level 2 and 3. For the Nova to get up, because you still want to level Nova, because that's one of the biggest powers of Undead is their focus fire with their fiends and their huge damage output using Coil and Nova at the same time. But in this place, you're still trying to be a little bit defensive, and what Frost Armor is going to do is allow every melee unit, which are Grunts and Raiders, that attack that Frost Armor unit to be both slowed in their movement and attack speed. And you know, Grunts already have a pretty slow attack speed. So had he had even opted, instead of, if he's not going to coil that unit, at the very least he could have done is cast the Frost Armor on that. It might have been able to save this Fiend. It's also something that you don't want to keep leveling up. Just leave Frost Armor at level 1. There's really no point to putting anything more into that. It only increases the armor, and in this case you're not really, you're more after the Frost effect. The cold effect that you're going to get from that, and the armor does help, but that's not something you really need to increase in levels later on. It's definitely more important to get Nova past level 1 Frost Armor in this matchup. So we're going to go ahead and unpause now. We should be at the 920 mark. If you're not there already, go ahead and try to get there as fast as possible. I'll talk for another second when you have to resync up the replay. We're at the 920 mark at 1x speed. Fog of War off, and I'm going to unpause here in 5 seconds. We got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, unpause. So we're on pause now, and the TP's just going to go off, and he's going to miss the kill there on that, or he is going to get the kill on that Fiend. So not looking too good for that Undead player. That was a good choice to make the TP, but he probably could have executed that a little bit better. And even if you're going to stay and fight, definitely something you want to consider is there's Frost Armor and using Coil defensively, which we're going to see a few other times in this fight where Frost Armor, in this replay, where Frost Armor definitely could have benefited him a little bit more. So a lot of people have been asking me, since I've been kind of talking a little bit about this matchup, is what skill choices would I use on a Lich? Now, again, I'm not an Undead player. I've been playing Orc all my life, as I've been saying, for pretty much all my Warcraft life, and I've recently switched to Human. But in this matchup, as an Orc player fighting against Undead players, I really find that Frost Armor is the biggest counter to Raiders here. And the Undead can definitely beat Raiders just using Frost Armor. So big thing there to use Frost Armors now. So the skill order I'd want to go on my Lich for that would be a level 1 Frost Armor first, then for levels 2 and 3 you get Frost Nova, and then since we're not going with Frost Armor anymore, we're going to opt for Dark Ritual, and then at level 5 you're going to get Nova again, and then you get your ultimate at level 6, and then keep getting Dark Ritual, and then the last few abilities you're going to get the Frost Armor again, if you get your Lich that high. So just really one use of level 1 Frost Armor here. Now we actually just missed something. You might want to watch the replay to check it out, but the Orc player actually scouted the Undead player's location with some wolves, and he was building, he actually started construction of his expansion at the southern part of his base here. But in preemptively knowing that the Undead player was going to come there, he decides to cancel that expansion and hide the peon behind the gold mine in order to just kind of save face there. Actually what this ends up doing is kind of is a fake out, I guess is the best way to say it. Now the Undead player says, hey, he's creeped out his expansion, but he hasn't got an expansion there, and he hasn't built one yet. So he thinks he's safe for a little while longer, and having just scouted that out. But little does he know, right now the Orc player is starting up the expansion that's actually going to stay there. So definitely a good move there by the Orc player. Just really a ghostly move, just kind of, again, thinking in his opponent's shoes. Hey, my opponent's going to be on his way here. Do I want him to see my expansion under construction or not? If he sees it, it's probably going to go down regardless, so why don't I just cancel it early and kind of have a little bit of an advantage here with my opponent not knowing where my expansion's up yet, or going to be up soon. So again, we're having the Orc player fortifying a little bit of an air army here. He's got some Wyverns coming out. Wyvern's actually already out with his Bat Riders. He's not going crazy with the Raiders. He's got 4 Raiders. That's actually a good bit of a large amount of Raiders as far as when facing Fiends. You really don't need that many. Notice he is twisting in 1 Kodo Beast, and this is something that before I recently switched to Human I was doing in my Orc game. Just having that 1 Kodo Beast, even if you're not going to use Devour, just having war drums around your units definitely increases a lot of damage potential there. So plus it's always nice to have that option if a fiend happens to be right next to your Coda Beast, or if you have a scroll of speed to pop it and quick there eat a fiend and bring them back to the back lines there. So again, both players doing a really good job of sending their skeletons and their wolves, just scouting out each other. This is a game is a perfect example of how to keep tabs on your opponent. You know, everyone wants to know where your opponent's at, and again, like I want to reiterate from before, if you can't see your opponent through scouting purposes, you want to be able to kind of preemptively think in your opponent's shoes. It's very, very important skill, and it's almost like map hack. If you're experienced enough to know where your opponent's at and creeping the whole time, all the high-end players, they can do this. They know. They played it against, Grubby's played against enough Night Elf players and Undead players to kind of know their creeping patterns, to know where they would be at, what time they're going to be trying to attack his base, and he can kind of preemptively be in the right place at the right time to get creep jacks and properly defend his base and or make pushes to achieve victory. So definitely something you want to practice. You know, a lot of players are just like you guys. They're just going to be watching audio commentaries. They're going to be watching a lot of replays, and they're going to kind of be imitating a lot of what they see. So even if they're innovating, they're still going to kind of have the same amounts of timing in there. So we're going to have another big fight going on here. This one actually ends up turning out, I think this one's actually pretty good for the Undead player. The food count's obviously really crazy now. We got 70 food count for the Orc player, and we're at 55 for the Undead. So if you hold Alt, you can see what each player is focus firing. The Undead player pops a Skull of Blight. I forgot this. Sacrificial Skull to make it Blight. That helps his units regen a little bit. Definitely a good thing. Orc player uses a wand of a lightning shield on the Fiend. Definitely a good idea there to use your wand of lightning shield on the Fiend, since they tend to all be grouped up here. There we go. We see a really nice job of using Coil to try to save this Fiend. Unfortunately, the Fiend does go down. He didn't TP out in time. There was just too much focus fire going off on it. But had he not done that, another unit probably would have died. So it's still a good move by that. If you weren't watching a particular feat by this Orc player, he used Hex versus the Death Knight to try to stop him from coiling the Lich. Before he went in for the final focus fire kill volley on that Lich, he cast Hex on the Death Knight. Now he's not necessarily using Hex so he can kill the Death Knight, he's just using Hex so the Death Knight isn't able to coil that Lich. So I really, really like the Shadow Hunter in Orc versus Undead matches, and also Orc versus Night Elf, just for that little bit of control, extra control. I mean, Ensnare's good, but a Hex on a Fiend and a Hex to stop a coil from going off is a good move. So I'm looking here at the Undead base, and we see another Wolf going off here. See, I was generally thinking about this point that the Orc player probably could have pushed and won this. It's 47 food versus 71 food, but instead for pushing for the victory here, he's playing it a little safe. He's got his expansion to fall back on. He's now starting to really see the kind of profit from that, and that investment is now turning around to where he can have and fortify a really high food